let's talk a little bit about our topic today. Let's talk about perfection. How many of you are perfectionists? Let's just get raise of hands. Oh, okay, okay. We got a lot of perfection. This is where I pick on y'all. Who did I see? Juliana, I saw that you raised your hand. What does being a perfectionist mean to you?
I feel like everything I do has to be like a certain way.
Okay. Okay. Who else is a perfectionist? Who else would say they're a perfectionist? Elise, what does perfection being a perfectionist mean to you?
Kind of the same thing that Juliana said. Like, I feel like everything I do has to be perfect. And for me, it's about pleasing other people. So, like, it has to be perfect for other people.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Who feels like they are not a perfectionist? All right. Ella, why is that?
I feel like it's an unrealistic expectation to have to set for yourself. So I try and like reframe my mindset with like, as long as you put in the effort and you're proud of your work, it doesn't have to be perfect. Because like that's kind of unattainable, I think.
Yeah. All right. That's what we're gonna dive into. And then
I'm not much of a perfectionist. And just like now, I forgot the name. As she was saying that I feel like sometimes it's setting unrealistic goals for yourself. However, I would highlight myself as a creative perfectionist. When it comes to being creative, I like my things to be a certain way
mhm,
and to have my signature, to know that I did this and I did it to the T.
good, very good. So
That's what I was going to agree with because I was going to say I feel like I like things done my way, but I don't kill myself if it's like not. I'm not going to sit there and try and make it perfect, but I like it done how I like it done at the same time.
okay, so we're gonna talk about this. Three things that we're going to talk about when working. And this is going to be helpful tips when working here at Demi Events, but then working in general. Everyone, we mention ourselves, right? The other thing we should be thinking of is how does our working style affect others, right? Our teammates in our group. And then for career standpoints, how does it affect our company that we're working with? So those are the three things you're going to hear me consistently reiterate. For us, we are always focused on at Demi Events is striving to get to a goal. So for us, the word that I want to focus on is specifically progression. That is something that I think we should all be focusing on is progressing to what we want to achieve within this program. The one thing that we have come to find out with Demi Events is our main focus is to make sure you feel confident and you feel secure about achieving and trying to go after your dream job or your dream goals. A lot of the times when we think of our dream, a lot of people either might, for lack of better words, not agree with it or think that it's a little too hard to attain. And when we tell them this is what we want to focus in on, they're like, oh, maybe you should do something else. That career, I'm sure you all have heard some of this, that career doesn't really make that much money or that career, there's not that many jobs in this market for that. And those are so many, there's so much negativity accounted for when we talk about our dreams and less positivity. And we want to reaffirm that you all feel confident to achieve those. And then you're able to meet and interact with people who are in those careers that you want to achieve. And they're from areas that you're from as well. So understanding what that looks like and how that's actually achievable and giving you this play by play to understand how to account for that specifically. So one thing I love to do during these conversations is I love to understand what words mean because I don't know a lot of stuff and you'll hear me say that, hey, I don't know it, but we'll figure it out. But the idea of the idea of progression, when we break that word down, I'm gonna look at my notes. It's the process of developing or moving gradually towards a more advanced state. And when thinking about that word and thinking about the definition, there are four words that stood out to me. One of those words is process. The other word is developing. The other one is gradually. And then after that, it's advanced. So when we think of the word process, that means it's going to take time. It's not going to be a right away thing. And then for us to understand this definition a little bit more, it says developing gradually. Gradually means pretty slow, right? So it doesn't mean you're going to change tomorrow. It means that it's going to take a long time, right? So this is, for us, the internship is building the foundation for you to build upon that. I don't think all of you will get to that point. Some of you might get to that point. Everybody's at different career journeys, and that's completely fine. But we want to help to lay that foundation for you all so you can gradually get there. Developing. So developing means you're going to have to leave some of the old stuff you did behind and bring on some new things that you're working on. What that means is there's going to be a little bit of discomfort in between that space. So understanding what you used to do and you liked that way and you felt really good about that and that was easy to you, it came natural, right? We all talk about like feeling natural when we think about that. Now, when you move into a newer space, there's going to be a lot more discomfort. And with that discomfort, we're going to break down kind of how to live within that discomfort, because developing new skill sets and trying new things out is uncomfortable. How many of y'all can attest to that, right? When you went to a new school, when you went to a new job, that was uncomfortable and it didn't feel good right away until you kind of got your bearings and you figured it out. And then the last two words, or the last word that I really want to talk about is advance, right? So that means you started somewhere and you got to a new place, and that's going to be your goal, right? You want to make sure you're advancing as you're progressing through this. So make sure you're remembering that. I think we said what, 5 or 4 words, right? Process, developing, gradually, and then advance. So remember those 4 words when you're thinking about these. The 5 points that I want to go over today, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms, and you all are going to chat about this and reflect on these things. You're going to hear a lot about reflection for us, because that is the best way for you to grow, is reflect on what you heard and what you learned, write it out, type it in your phone, whatever that might be for you. And that is the way that you can continually progress and move forward to advance to what you want to achieve within your life. But the first thing for me that I always think about when striving or going into that progression space is understanding what you want to do and what's your goal. So for a lot of you, this is your first week. For some of you all, this is the second to last week of your internship, right? Next week will be your last week. But for you all, remembering what was your goal when you got to this internship? And if you haven't wrote that down or you haven't thought about that, start to think about that. When you got to this internship, what is your goal? What are you aiming for? What is your dream career? What do you want to accomplish? So having some type of understanding of that. And then after that, being honest with yourself, right? These are things that are going to help you to really say, you know what, if I'm honest with myself, I can be honest. Just like today, I was saying, hey, I might not know what a word means. So I look up the definition. If you're honest with yourself, then you start to understand like, all right, I don't need to be perfect in this space. I can have some flaws to myself, and that's okay, because I'm trying to progress and learn from that. So if you're learning from that, that's good. What's going to really help you to get to that advanced part of where you want to be. So making sure you're understanding, hey, I need to be honest with myself and say, you know what? I don't know what Mo was talking about in that meeting. If I don't feel comfortable speaking out loud and saying, hey, Mo, I don't know what that means, because it might feel a little uncomfortable, what we talked about in that development process, that's going to be some uncomfortability in that space, send me a note on Slack or ask one of the intern managers. But we want you to try, right? And that's actually my third point, is trying that out. So the first 2 are internal things that you should work on. So these are things where you're talking to yourself, where you're reaffirming yourself, say, hey, I'm trying to aim for this thing and this is what I want to achieve. And then the next thing is say, let me be honest with myself and say, I don't really know this or I don't get this. It's okay not to get it, because this is an internship program where you're learning, right? This is for us a new form of schooling and teaching you all to be okay with saying, hey, I don't know this, because you're trying to learn within this program. So when trying things out, that's the external version of that. How are you externally trying within your group? For what we just talked about, that's saying, hey, Mo, I don't understand this, or asking a question, because the reality of it is someone else in your group probably doesn't know, and that's what's going to help them to develop as well. So everything that you do internally and then transfer it externally helps not only you, right, but it helps someone else in the group because they might not understand it either. And now, because you were brave enough to ask the question, now they can learn and develop from that. And then it also helps the company as well, so we can get better, right? We are not a perfect organization, and I would never market us as a perfect organization. We are trying to progress and do better within the work that we're trying to achieve and accomplish. And that at our core is doing good within that space. So when you think of that, you're helping all three of those things that we consistently talked about, right? You're helping us to teach better and making sure that everything we give to you all is a lot more clear and direct. And that ultimately creates a better atmosphere for all of us to develop and grow. And then as we move on to the next part is now you're going to start to weed out your own process. So what works for you and what doesn't work for you. That's where you start to figure out and see where it starts to feel a little bit more comfortable as you're trying out these new things. So maybe for you, going through the assignment sheet the day before or a few minutes before your meeting works best for you. And now you feel refreshed and you know exactly what you need to work on. Or maybe you need to look up all the words that we're talking about because you're not sure about it, and then reaffirm and go to open door and say, hey, you know what? I looked these up. I didn't know these terms, but now I'm understanding these terms. Can you kind of go over these with me, right? And now when you do that and you start to figure out your own process of how to execute, get things done, that's where you're becoming more advanced, right? That's that development stage for you, and you're growing within that space. And by growing within that space, now you're learning and you're getting to those accolades or getting to those next steps of achieving your dream goal and your dream career. And through that, once again, sharing some of that within your group is really important. So one thing I always share with the interns, and this is for all of you all to know, right? If you need help on something, Sundays is the day. I work Monday through Saturday. Sundays is the day that I take off, right? I don't respond to anything. So if you message me on Sunday, you're not going to get a response from me until Monday morning. And that's important for me to share with my group because someone could get frustrated if they keep reaching out to me on Monday. Internally, I've told myself that, but externally, I haven't told anyone that. So it's important once you start to figure out your process, talk to someone else in the group. And by sharing that information, once again, you're helping not only yourself develop, you're helping another person develop, and you're helping the company to be better and grow within that space. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is always working on striving to always help others, your group, and things of that nature. Everything we talked about, when striving to these new goals and progressing to these new spaces is going to feel uncomfortable and you're going to not want to do it, right? But consistently doing it is what develops, I would say, character or some type of structure for you, right? Because before you thought you couldn't do it, and now when you do it on a consistent basis, now it becomes more natural to you, and it becomes easier and you feel a lot better. For some of you, that might be school where you're like, man, going from high school to college, that was a crazy workload. Like in high school, I didn't think I could do it. And then now I moved to college and I feel like I can do it. And some of you, that might have been a career or a job. You're like, this job was really hard at the beginning, but now I feel really eased into it. It's because you started doing it every single day, and that became your new structure and your new flow, and now it feels comfortable. And that's where you start to get advanced and you continue to grow. Now, when you're in those areas and it feels tough and it's hard, one of the things you always want to relate back to is the first thing we talked about. What are you aiming for, right? If I know, like, hey, I'm aiming to be the best brand manager in the country, and I really want to work with, I always pick on Cheyenne, Taylor Swift. Like, that's my main focus. I'm trying to work with Taylor Swift. This is going to help me to develop my skill set in the areas that I want to go into. And that's what's going to help me to build my confidence in that space. Because it's not always going to feel good. But if I remember what I'm doing this for, now I can train my mind to say, you know what? I feel good about this, or maybe I don't feel good about this, and that's okay. But I'm going to still practice what I want to achieve to, so it can become a natural thing for me.